Are you getting out of Intel?
Not at all. The only thing I regret here is not buying it today and when we bought it in the spring. If I could buy it today and initiate a new position, I'd be happy to. The way I'm looking at this is that there's so much short-termism on the numbers today. When I think back to some of the best investments we've made, they've been at points like this. So we bought Target, for example, the day Amazon announced Whole Foods and there wasn't a positive report to be had. We bought Qualcomm the day after Brexit. There wasn't a positive report to be had. And those are very, very long-term focused investments. We're the same with Intel right now. So be it if there's a rough patch. In our whole holding period, which from here on will probably be 3 years plus, I'm quite certain we'll make money, and I'm quite certain that we'll look back on this and see it as a rough patch that they emerge from quite profitably. They make a ton of money, and they'll figure out a way back to growth.
Yeah, but they think, I mean, there are some who are going to make the case that their key parts of the business may be in fundamental decline, and that's why they're unlike the Qualcomms, which you mentioned, which are still players in 5G and other areas, and then Target, which is hard to make a comparison. It seems apples and oranges.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Sorry, back then, those were the same arguments that were being made for Qualcomm and for Target. And with this, so maybe their manufacturing is in decline, and if they do decide that it is, at least on the call we heard they're being flexible. And maybe they do say, hey, you know what? We don't have an edge here anymore. We're going to transfer the manufacturing to Taiwan Semiconductor. That would be a hugely bullish thing for Intel. And we think that there would be a lot of upside that came out of that.
Yeah, but the data center, though, was bad. This is Stacy Rascon. He's the #1 rated analyst in the space who covers it. Don't think that it can't get worse, he says. Gross margins missed hugely. Data center ASPs and margins collapsed. While we thought last quarter's call was bad, last night's was potentially even worse, as fundamentals are now deteriorating at an alarming pace. Reiterate, underperform. You know I have a great amount of respect for you, Jenny, and all that you do and how successful you've been. But how can you justify saying some of the positive things that you did when the evidence would suggest otherwise?
Well, let's take a look at Goldman's report, for example. So Goldman still has their sell, and I don't know if Stacy's numbers went up too, but Goldman's report still has a sell. But if you read through that whole report, they actually revised their 2022 numbers up in that. So I think we just need to see it play out. And, yeah, short-term it's ugly. Long-term, this is a really powerful company, and I'm betting on the management being able to get things back on track in a positive way.
And that's the other part of it, too, is that, I'm not sure what kind of time frames we're talking about. It's hard to argue that somebody has short-termism if they've been in the name for 5 years, for example. That stock, Intel's up 38% over that period. That's half the S&P. AMD over that period of time is up 3,500%. All right, if you want to go short-termism and go 3 years, Intel's down 7% over 3 years. S&P's up 35, AMD's up 470.
I would say your starting point needs to start now, though. And I think you've got AMD that's trading at, like 100 times earnings. You've got Intel that's trading at 10 times earnings. I don't think AMD will be able to sustain the magnitude of growth that they've had. Intel, there's just, and I know this is my repetitive argument, there's just nothing in the expectations. I said this 3 days ago. I was wrong. I thought expectations were low enough that they'd be easy to beat. They're not. Give me another quarter or two. But right now my spirit isn't broken on the expectation that they're going to get this right and find a way to grow and succeed.